Top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The vivacious Amanda Serrano on fighting for 12 three-minute rounds. We wanted to make a statement. We wanted to do something different. Later on this week, Amanda Serrano will attempt to set the bar moving forward. Set the bar for herself and set the bar for other female fighters by fighting for 12 three-minute rounds, saying, obviously this came from the crazy mind of Jordan. Serrano quipped to BoxingScene.com of her brother-in-law, head trainer, and manager, Jordan Maldonado. Obviously, we have the WBO mandatory, so we wanted to make a statement. We wanted to do something different. So we asked Denila and her team if they would be interested to fight 12 rounds and 3 minutes per round. It took her team like 2 seconds to agree to it. So we just decided to do it. Nikisa went to Florida, the Florida Commission, to make sure it was cool, and now we're doing it. Accenting what I've been saying, that if the Boxing Commission that issues licenses is okay with it, what's wrong with the WBC? Amanda continued, the only different thing we did was run a little more for this fight, admitted Serrano, who celebrated her 35th birthday on Monday, a couple of more miles, a few more minutes of cardio. Other than that, we go to the gym, we train hard, spar our usual 3-minute rounds. This camp was just adding a little bit more cardio. Amanda Serrano is 35 years young. 3 years younger than Denila Ramos, and a lot more experience. I've spoken to a lot of fighters. Some are bigger proponents of 12 3-minute rounds in women's boxing matches than others, though Amanda Serrano has been one of the more vocal ones over the years, making this seem like an audition. This Denila Ramos fight. Denila Ramos, like Amanda Serrano, has fluctuated in weight over the years, campaigning anywhere in between bantam or just above bantam, all the way up to super feather. She's been around. This fight, this is a featherweight contest. Featherweight, that's 126 pounds. And Denila, she's a solid fighter. She's solid, but not on Amanda Serrano's level. I feel like this fight is going to look a lot like the Diana Santana fight. The two fights that Amanda had with the Dominican Republic's own Diana Santana. Similar dimensions between Denila Ramos and Diana Santana. I do feel like Denila Ramos likes to spend a little bit more time in the pocket than Diana did. Diana was a moving target. She likes to use the ring, move around. In truth, a lot of fighters like to do that when they're in there with Amanda because they can't stay in the pocket with her. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Denila start to do the same thing. Move around. Under normal circumstances, Denila Ramos doesn't mind trading punches in the pocket, though she will find that Amanda Serrano's shots are a lot more compact. Her hooks are a lot more tight. Her backhand is a lot more straight. That may elicit a lot of respect from her, unless we forget Amanda's a body puncher. You will notice that even though Denila, she's a capable and experienced fighter, her punches are a lot more wide, sweeping shots. Plenty of room for Amanda to counter her. Plenty of room for Amanda to get shots in there. I wonder if Denila's going to be as aggressive with Amanda as she was with Elham Mekhaled, because if she is, then it's very likely that Amanda stops her. It's very likely that Amanda knocks her out. Knocks her out for the first time in her career. To Denila Ramos's credit, she's never been stopped. She's never been stopped before, but you know what they say, there's a first time for everything. And while she's never been stopped, she never fought a puncher like Amanda Serrano either. A hard puncher, a volume puncher, with an engine like Amanda Serrano. It goes two ways. Either Denila Ramos stays in character, sits in a pocket, and trades punches with Amanda, at which point she gets outgunned. It either goes that way, or it goes where, because she's got more time in a round, and because she knows Amanda's a strong puncher, she gets on the good foot, she uses the ring, and the fight looks like the Diana Santana fight. It goes two ways. But either way it goes, Amanda wins. In either scenario, not only is Amanda likely to beat Denila Ramos, she's likely to stop her. She's wanted 12 3-minute rounds for a very long time. She's been able to hurt a lot of girls, stop a lot of girls, with just 2 minutes on the clock, just 2 minutes in the round. What happens if you give her that additional minute against a fighter that has a penchant for trading punches, a penchant for letting her hands go? It's either Amanda stops her in the pocket or Amanda chases her down, walks her down, and stops her that way. I like Amanda Serrano to win by way of knockout. I like her to win by way of knockout this Friday. Stated Denila Ramos, capable fighter that she might be. She is 3 years older than Amanda Serrano. She certainly isn't the puncher that Amanda is. She doesn't have the form, the technique, the sharpness, and the compact hooks, the power that Amanda has. So it's likely that Amanda stops her in what looks a lot like an audition for 12 3-minute rounds in more women's boxing matches.
And if Amanda Serrano can stay in character, keep that same crowd-pleasing aesthetic that all her fights have, action fights, while delivering that knockout, that could go a long way in helping to sell it.
That you're not sacrificing what makes the fights entertaining by adding a minute to a round or adding 2 rounds to a fight. That it's just as, if not more entertaining with more knockouts. So here's hoping that Amanda can finish the job, finish strong, and finish Denila Ramos.
Finish her!
In other news, you may have heard that Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou, which is set to go down this weekend, will be shown on DAZN pay-per-view in multiple territories, and it's a direct contradiction of what a lot of people told you 4 or 5 years ago when the DAZN app debuted in America. So many forecasted that it would go under, that it wouldn't last, and as it stands, it has in fact outlasted the Showtime platform, Showtime Boxing. I told you then, they're going to be just fine. They're going to do all right because streaming and streaming apps are the future of content distribution.
Whether you're talking about sports, movies, and TV shows, it was very obvious to me then 5 years ago, that apps, streaming apps, that's the future.
So why is a top-ranked show and a Queensberry promotion show, these promotional outfits that already have major broadcast partners, why are they turning to the DAZN platform to distribute this fight when they're the ones that have been saying no one uses it? You can't get any eyes on it. Dead zone. And all of that jazz. Bob Arum.
The ESPN platform, which is a very big platform in this country, the emphasis is that it's only a big platform in this country. It's not a global streaming app the same way DAZN is. It doesn't cater to as many markets, as many territories.
And neither does TNT, formerly known as BT Sport, Queensberry Promotions' broadcast partner. Yeah, that's a decent-sized platform in the United Kingdom, but it's not a global streaming platform. It doesn't cater to anywhere near as many markets as the DAZN platform. So where in the beginning, a lot of people told you that nobody watches DAZN, nobody's going to get eyes on a fight if it's on an app, time has proven them wrong.
Because if that were true and nobody's using this thing, you wouldn't be using them to help distribute this fight. Distribute it to markets that ESPN and TNT can't reach. DAZN's overall subscribers hovering around 61 million, somewhere around there.
It's a lot of people, a lot of wallets spread across a lot of different territories that ESPN and TNT can't reach. Territories they don't cater to. DAZN's business strategy over the years, diversifying their catalog from legitimate boxing matches, which we all watch, to their wildly successful misfits boxing matches, their social media influencer boxing matches, what basically is celebrity boxing. They brought in 1.3 million pay-per-view buys with the last one, Logan Paul versus Dylan Dennis, KSI versus Tommy Fury, wildly successful, and they have effectively cornered that market because not only does Logan Paul, KSI, not only do they fight there, but Jake Paul does as well. Now, I'm not a proponent of those fights. That is, I don't consume that content, but a lot of people do, and they have to go to DAZN in order to get it. That's on top of their legitimate sports and their legitimate boxing matches.
The way you have to look at that is that's 2 different demos, which all makes for more wallets, more subscribers, more viewers, more reach.
Although DAZN was ridiculed in the beginning, the very beginning, about 4 or 5 years ago, when they debuted in America, they were the new kid in town, and obviously their competitors are going to meet them with some resistance. You're Bob Arum, you're Leonard Ellerby, you're Stefan Espinoza, you're Frank Warren. Their perspectives in reference to the DAZN platform breaking into the were tantamount to a dinosaur scoffing at a comet.
You didn't see this coming? And even if you did, what could you have done to stop it?
Those of you that have been with the channel a number of years will have heard me say many times that conventional cable packages are becoming less and less attractive to the consumer. People don't want to pay for all those channels they don't watch anyway. They just want to pay for what they watch specifically, which makes these streaming apps and streaming platforms that much more appealing for the time being. And it just so happens that DAZN is such a streaming platform. They were scoffing at this thing at a time when Hulu was big and Netflix was a giant.
How didn't you see this coming? The potential in streaming apps when most Americans in this generation are on apps all the time, and the next one.
The next generation is going to be a few ignorant individuals and some content creators here on this app, scoffing at the idea that boxing could flourish on streaming apps at a time when most Americans, most people around the world, use apps every day. Instagram is an app. Twitter, or X as it's now called, that's an app that millions of people around the world use every day. So the potential in apps and streaming apps was always there. Some were just too obtuse to acknowledge it, though still powerless to stop the rising tide and the direction that things are going in. As it pertains to this weekend's fight, it will be distributed in select territories around the world by the DAZN platform, and you wouldn't share sports rights to a major show, a major fight, with a streaming platform that no one watches. Why would you do that? You wouldn't, unless that streaming platform is available in places you can't go, places your broadcast partner can't reach, which goes against the narrative that was propagated about the DAZN platform from the very beginning, that they wouldn't blast and no one would watch them. Who's going to watch boxing on an app?
And now look, you need their help to distribute your show to more people.
I can't tell you how many of the usual suspects, some content creators here on YouTube 4 or 5 years ago, were scoffing at the DAZN platform, hoping that it would fail. Many of them have since stopped covering boxing, moved on to other types of content and other types of sports. I guess they didn't like boxing that much to begin with, which is what I told you.
These guys ain't boxing fans.
What is yet another I told you so moment for yours truly. A lot of false narratives were debunked this year in particular, the great cleansing, and this was just another. DAZN is doing all right enough that Bob and Frank need them to help distribute their show.
So what does that tell you?
Now in men's featherweight and super featherweight news, former champion Brandon Figueroa believes a fight with Ngannou Navarette would be a war, and I happen to agree it would be a war, but it's not a war that he can win. Brandon Figueroa is a lesser version of the pressure fighter that Ngannou Navarette is. Brandon stated he's a really awkward fighter. He throws a lot of punches, but I do too. Figueroa told 210 Boxing TV, that'll be a really interesting fight to make, and I know it would be very exciting. Currently, Brandon Figueroa is campaigning at 126, whereas Ngannou Navarette is up there at 130. He's WBO champion up there. He's a 3-division champion overall, and he may be on his way north of super featherweight very soon, beyond the Robson-Conceição fight, set to go down later on this year. That's saying that not only are they separated by way of political boundary lines and promotional outfits, but they are also separated by weight. That Brandon's WBC interim champion at 126, whereas Ngannou is a full WBO champion at 130, and he may be on his way up. So as mouth-watering as this fight might be, we may not get it.
What could, at least in theory, keep Ngannou Navarette at 130 a little while longer, I think, would have to be a unification match with one of the other champions at the weight.
A Joe Cordina fight just isn't likely for Ngannou Navarette. Neither is a fight with the winner of O'Shaquie Foster versus Eduardo Rocky Hernandez. Whoever wins that fight, they might go into a unification fight with Joe Cordina over there on the Matchroom and DAZN platform.
That is where all of that is happening and where those fighters are right now.
But what about Hector Luis Garcia, the Dominican Republic's own WBA champion, who's not otherwise preoccupied with anything right now, a PBC fighter with no PBC fights, no fight date. We all know what happened. The PBC don't have a platform at this time, and I've no doubts that behind the scenes, as we speak, Al Heyman is working on that. But how long is he going to be working on that? How long will these fighters and this champion go without a fight date, be left in limbo? So who's to say that maybe he can't go over to Top Rank, send him over to Top Rank, see if he can't unify with Ngannou Navarette? I think that's a fight that Ngannou would be receptive to. And when it comes to Hector, Well, beggars can't be choosy. You ain't got a lot going on right now. You're still coming off that knockout loss to Gervonta Davis earlier this year. You haven't fought.
You haven't rebounded.
That same sentiment applies not just to Hector Luis Garcia, but Brandon Figueroa as well. He is just as affected by this news as every PBC fighter who is now left in limbo until such a time as Al Heyman can get them a fight date. So if Brandon is serious and he really does want to get Emmanuel in the ring, well, now's your chance. You ain't otherwise preoccupied with anything else, and he's still there. He's still at 130. Given Brandon Figueroa's frame, 130 would be an easy weight for him to make. Though would he actually beat Emmanuel or stand a chance?
I don't think so.
Both Brandon Figueroa and Emmanuel Navarette are mid-range to inside pressure guys, volume guys, with the difference being that Emmanuel is a southpaw and Brandon is an orthodox fighter. And even though they have the same base style, there is a method to Emmanuel's madness, whereas Brandon...
Those are deficiencies. Those are deficiencies you're looking at when it comes to Brandon. A guy being that tall and that long for that weight, always fighting in the phone booth.
Brandon does it for the same reason that Sebastian Fundora does it at 154, for the same reason that Jarrett Hurd used to do it at that same weight. These are very statuesque fighters that often fight in the phone booth because they ain't got much of a jab. They can't manage the distance or control it with a stiff stick, so what they do is sell out and smother their opponents. In essence, that's a deficiency.
More so than a propensity.
If you're asking me what I think would happen if Brandon Figueroa fought Emmanuel Navarette, not only do I think Emmanuel is a better pressure fighter than Brandon Figueroa by and large, but he's a harder puncher and a more durable fighter with a better engine. Don't forget that Emmanuel comes from Mexico City. Those fighters are not only always awkward, but they've got great engines, great energy reserves. Punch for punch, I think he's a more accurate puncher than Brandon, a more devastating puncher than Brandon, and more maturated as a fighter. So if the question is who wins, I think Emmanuel wins.
Does it actually happen, though?
No, I don't think it's likely. Emmanuel may move up in weight again beyond the Robson-Conceição fight from 130 up to 135, so we may never know.
Although, if they were to fight, yeah, I'd back Emmanuel to win that one.